My beloved child, stop right where you are. I know what is happening in your home. I know what the relationship looks like behind closed doors. The silences that used to be comfortable and are now unbearable. The conversations that used to flow freely and now feel like walking through a minefield. The distance that has grown between two people who once could not imagine needing distance from each other. And the specific pain of lying beside someone and feeling utterly alone. Of sharing a life with a person and not knowing who they are anymore. Of looking across the table at the one you married and wondering where the person you fell in love with went and whether they are ever coming back. I see the state of your relationship not as you present it to the world, but as it actually is, with all the hurt and the disappointment and the anger and the grief and the love that is still there beneath all of it, even when it is almost impossible to feel. You did not find this message by accident. I have been present in your relationship since before it began, and I am present in this crisis, and I will not be silent while the enemy tries to convince you that what is broken cannot be repaired. Because the enemy has a very specific agenda in marriages and in significant relationships. He wants them destroyed. Not because he cares about your partner, not because he cares about you, but because he knows what a healthy covenant relationship reflects. It reflects something of my own love for my people, and it is a testimony that the world desperately needs. So he fights hard against marriages, and the fight is real, and the damage is real. But the enemy who is fighting against your relationship has already been defeated by the one who is fighting for it. And I am fighting for yours. I need to say something clearly at the beginning. I am speaking today to several different situations simultaneously, and I want you to hear the specific word for yours. For those of you whose relationship is in crisis, but both people are still present and still willing, I am speaking hope and direction for the restoration that is possible. For those of you who are in this alone, whose partner has checked out or walked away, or is unwilling to engage, I am speaking to your specific situation too, because my word for you is different and I know it. And for those of you who are in a relationship that involves genuine abuse or danger, I want to say clearly that my love for you includes your safety, and that no word about covenant or commitment applies to a situation where your physical or psychological safety is at risk. Please, if that is your situation, reach for safety first. I also want to speak to those of you who are not in a marriage crisis, but who are in a significant relationship that is struggling, a friendship that has become fractured, a family relationship that has deteriorated, a partnership that is under severe strain. The principles I am speaking today extend beyond marriage to every significant relationship that has value and is under attack. Because I am the God of relationship, I exist in relationship within the Trinity. I created human beings for relationship, and I care deeply about the health of the relationships in your life beyond the marital one. Stay here with me. I know that relationship pain is some of the most complex and exhausting pain there is, because it involves not just your own feelings, but another person's choices, another person's healing or refusal to heal, another person's willingness or unwillingness to do the work. I know that you cannot control the outcome of this crisis, that the restoration of the relationship requires the participation of someone other than yourself, and that the uncertainty of whether that participation will come is one of the most difficult things about your situation. I am not going to pretend that certainty, but I am going to give you something real, a word about what I am doing, what is possible, and how to walk through this in a way that honors who you are, regardless of what the other person chooses. My child, I want to speak to how the relationship arrived at the place it currently is, because understanding the journey is part of finding the path through. Not to assign blame, the crisis in your relationship is almost certainly not entirely one person's fault, even when it feels that way from the inside, but to see clearly what has happened so that what has been broken can be identified and addressed rather than papered over. Most relationship crises do not arrive suddenly. They are the result of a long accumulation, small disconnections that were never repaired, small hurts that were never addressed, small patterns that were established early, and then entrenched over time until what seemed like manageable friction became an apparently unbridgeable gap. The moment of crisis, the affair that came to light, the conversation that finally said the unsayable, the one argument too many, the day someone stopped trying, that moment was not the beginning. It was the point at which what had been building beneath the surface finally broke through. And what has broken through, as painful as it is actually giving you information about what has needed to be addressed for a long time. I want to speak to the specific patterns that tend to erode relationships over time, because naming them is part of addressing them. The pattern of criticism that gradually replaced appreciation, the slow shift from seeing the best in each other to cataloging each other's failures, the pattern of contempt that grows from unresolved hurt, the subtle and then not so subtle expressions of disdain that communicate to a partner that they are not respected, the pattern of withdrawal, the emotional and physical pulling back that creates safety from conflict but also creates the distance that eventually becomes the relationship's defining feature. The pattern of defensiveness that makes honest conversation impossible because every attempt to express a concern becomes a threat to be neutralized rather than information to be received. These patterns do not begin with malice. They begin with hurt that was not healed and need that was not met. But over time they do as much damage as intentional cruelty. I also want to speak to the wounds that each person brought into the relationship that have been acting out within it. No one enters a marriage as a finished product. Everyone brings their family of origin, their previous experiences of love and loss, their wounds and their defenses, and their distorted ideas about what relationship is supposed to look like and how needs are and are not supposed to be expressed. These wounds do not disappear when the wedding ceremony is over. They come into the home and they live there, and they are triggered by the intimacy of close relationship in ways they were not triggered before, and the result is that sometimes what looks like conflict with your partner is actually unhealed history from before your partner ever entered the picture. I want to speak to those of you who have experienced a specific breach of trust, infidelity, deception, a significant betrayal of the covenant you made to each other. I know that this is one of the most devastating things that can happen in a marriage, and I am not going to minimize it or rush past it. The wound of infidelity is real and profound, and the road back from it, if a road back is even possible, is long and requires genuine accountability and genuine change from the one who caused the harm and genuine grace from the one who was harmed. I am not saying it is always possible to rebuild after this. I am saying that with me, it is sometimes possible in ways that seem impossible from the human perspective. And I have seen marriages rebuilt after infidelity that became stronger and more genuine than they were before the crisis. Because the crisis forced an honesty and a depth of work that the comfortable surface had never required. I want to speak finally to what the crisis is revealing, because crisis in a relationship, as devastating as it is also information. It reveals what has been needed and was not being provided. It reveals the wounds that have been acting out without being acknowledged. It reveals the patterns that have become so habitual that they were invisible until they produced a rupture large enough to demand attention. The crisis, in all its pain, is an invitation to honesty, to depth, to the kind of genuine encounter with yourself and with your partner and with me that the comfortable surface never required. And I am asking you, will you accept the invitation? I want to speak now to the specific lies that a relationship crisis generates, because they are powerful and they are persistent, and they will drive decisions that cannot be undone if they are not addressed with truth. The first lie is that it is too late. that the damage is too extensive, the distance too great, the hurt too deep for any genuine repair to be possible. That whatever this relationship once was is permanently gone, and what remains is simply the decision of how to end it. My child, I am in the business of restoring what seems beyond restoration. I am the God who brought dry bones back to life, who made a way through the Red Sea, who raised the dead. The relationship that looks dead to you is not dead to me until I say it is. And I have not said it is. I am still fighting for yours. Which means that as long as both people are breathing, the possibility of something genuinely different exists. The lie of too late has driven people out of relationships that were on the verge of breakthrough. Do not let it drive you out of yours. The second lie is that your partner will never change, that the patterns you have observed are fixed, that the person you are in relationship with is fundamentally incapable of becoming who the relationship needs them to be, that waiting for change is simply prolonging your own suffering. Now, I want to be honest here, because this lie contains a distortion of something that is partially true. Some people in certain seasons are genuinely unwilling to change, and a relationship cannot be restored by one person's effort alone. But I have seen people change in ways that seemed impossible. I have seen hardened hearts soften, entrenched patterns shift, people who seemed completely closed to growth suddenly open to it, often at the very moment when the crisis became unavoidable. Do not make a permanent decision about what your partner is capable of from the vantage point of the crisis. What they are capable of, with my hand at work in their life, is different from what they are capable of in their own strength. The third lie is that your unhappiness is the primary indicator of whether the relationship should continue. That if you are not happy, the relationship has failed, and that your happiness is a sufficient justification for ending it. My child, I care about your joy and your well-being, and a relationship that is chronically destructive to your health and your dignity is not something I require you to remain in indefinitely. But happiness is an insufficient guide for decisions of this magnitude, because happiness is a feeling, and feelings change. The question is not primarily whether you are happy right now. It is whether what exists between you and your partner, the history, the commitment, the potential, is worth the work that restoration would require. And that is a question I am asking you to bring to me before you bring it to the exit. The fourth lie is that ending the relationship will solve the problem. That the pain you are in is caused by this specific person, and that removing this person will remove the pain and give you a fresh start. There is sometimes a genuine and appropriate ending to a relationship. And I am not saying that divorce is never the answer, but I am saying that the person who leaves a difficult relationship without doing the work of understanding their own contribution to its difficulties tends to recreate similar dynamics in the next relationship. Because the wounds that activated in this relationship will activate in the next one too. The work of healing that needs to happen is not primarily about this relationship. It is about the person you are bringing to every relationship. And that work is worth doing whether this relationship survives or not. The fifth lie is that God does not care whether your relationship survives, that I am neutral about the outcome, that whatever you decide is equally acceptable to me, that my love for you means I simply want you to be happy regardless of what that requires. My child, I care deeply about your relationship. I was present at its beginning. I witnessed the covenant you made. I have been at work in and through this relationship in ways you may not fully see. I have investment in its restoration. I am not neutral. I am fighting for the covenant. And I am asking you to fight for it, too, not from obligation or fear, but from the recognition that what I can do with a restored covenant relationship is more beautiful and more powerful and more genuinely life-giving than what the crisis currently makes it possible to see. My beloved, I want to speak now about what genuine restoration of a relationship in crisis actually involves, because I want you to have a realistic and honest picture of the work, rather than a romantic idea that will collapse under the weight of what the process actually requires. Restoration is real and it is possible, and it is also hard in ways that need to be named honestly, so that you can make an informed decision about whether you are willing to do what it takes. Restoration begins with both people being willing to be honest, genuinely, uncomfortably, specifically honest, about what has happened and what their role in it has been. Not the version of honest that shifts blame to the other person, while minimally acknowledging your own contribution. The kind of honest that is willing to look at yourself with the same critical clarity you have been applying to your partner. What patterns have you brought? What wounds have you acted out? What needs have you expressed destructively rather than clearly? What has your partner been trying to tell you that you have refused to hear? This kind of honesty is painful, and it is humbling, and it is the only ground on which genuine restoration can be built. Restoration requires the rebuilding of safety. The erosion of trust and the accumulation of hurt in a relationship in crisis means that both people are operating from a state of emotional unsafety, a hypervigilance about the other person's behavior, a bracing for the next wound, a guardedness that makes the genuine openness required for intimacy feel impossible. Rebuilding safety is not a single event. It is a sustained practice of reliability, showing up consistently, following through on commitments, responding to vulnerability with care rather than criticism, demonstrating through repeated behavior over time that the old patterns have genuinely changed. Safety is rebuilt slowly, and it cannot be rushed by declarations alone. It requires the patient accumulation of experience that contradicts the fear. Restoration almost always requires outside help. The patterns that produce the crisis and the wounds that drove those patterns are typically too entrenched and too emotionally charged to be addressed by the two people in the relationship without the help of a skilled third party. A counselor, a therapist who specializes in relationship work, a pastor trained in this area. This is not a sign of weakness or of the relationship being more broken than others. It is wisdom. It is the recognition that you are too close to the situation to see it clearly, that the emotional charge of the conversations makes clear thinking almost impossible, and that an objective, skilled guide can help you navigate the territory in ways that you cannot navigate alone. Get help. Let me work through it. Restoration requires the long work of forgiveness, not the quick, performed forgiveness that is declared before the hurt has been fully felt and processed. The genuine, long, often nonlinear work of choosing again and again to release the debt, not because the wrong was not wrong, not because the hurt was not real, but because carrying the debt is destroying you, and because I am more qualified than you to deal with it. Forgiveness in the context of an ongoing relationship is particularly complex, because the person you are forgiving is still present, still capable of causing further hurt, still triggering the original wound with their continued presence. It is not a single moment. It is a sustained practice, returned to repeatedly, supported by my grace, and usually by the help of a counselor who can guide the process. And restoration requires vision, a picture of what the relationship could become that is compelling enough to motivate the work required to get there. Not a return to what was, which produced the crisis, but a genuinely new thing. A relationship that has been through the fire and emerged with a depth and honesty and a genuine mutual knowledge that the comfortable surface never required. I have seen marriages on the other side of serious crisis that have become the most genuine and the most life-giving relationships either person has ever experienced. Not despite what they went through, but partly because of it. The depth forged in the crucible of crisis, when chosen and worked through, produces something that the easy relationship never develops. That is the vision I am holding for yours. My beloved child, I want to close by speaking about what I am actually doing in your relationship right now. Not what I might do if certain conditions are met, but what I am actively doing in this moment. Because I am not waiting passively for the two of you to figure this out. I am at work, and I want to give you eyes to see some of what that work looks like. I am softening hearts. The hardness that has developed between you and the person you are in relationship with, the walls, the contempt, the withdrawal, the frozen quality of two people who have stopped genuinely trying. These are not permanent states. Hearts that I am touching are being softened, even when the external evidence does not yet show it. The conversation that happened last week, that went differently than expected. The moment of vulnerability that broke through the wall, however briefly. The unexpected softness in a moment when only hardness was anticipated. These are not accidents. These are me, working in the places where hearts are most offended, bringing the gentleness that begins to create openings. I am bringing things to light that need to be seen. The patterns that have been invisible because they were so habitual, the wounds that have been driving behavior without being acknowledged, the needs that have been expressed in destructive ways because no one knew how to name them directly. I am creating the conditions in which these things are becoming visible. The crisis itself, painful as it is part of this revealing. Because you cannot heal what you cannot see, and I am committed to bringing into the light what has been operating in the dark. Because light is where healing happens. I am positioning help for you. The counselor whose name keeps coming to mind. The book that seems to keep appearing. The conversations in with the friend that touched something real. The message like this one that arrived at the moment when you needed it most. I am not leaving you to navigate this without guidance. I am placing in your path every resource that could serve the restoration I am working toward. The question is not whether the help is available. The question is whether you will reach for it. I am speaking to your partner too, even if they do not know it. Even if they are not seeking me. Even if they seem completely closed to the idea of restoration. I am at work in their inner life, in ways that are not yet visible to you, addressing the wounds and the patterns and the defenses that have contributed to the crisis from their side. I am not violating their freedom, but I am doing what I am always doing with human beings who are in pain and in need, offering myself, pursuing them, making myself available in every way available to me. I cannot guarantee their response, but I can tell you that I am not absent from their story, just because they are not currently seeking me. And I am sustaining you. Whatever has kept you here, reading this, engaging with the possibility that something real can be done, that is me. The faith that has not completely extinguished, the love that is still present beneath the hurt, the hope that persists despite the evidence against it. These are gifts I am maintaining in you through a season that would otherwise have destroyed them entirely. I am the one sustaining what remains. And what remains is the raw material from which restoration is built. So I speak over your relationship today, my beloved child, with the full authority and the full love that I bring to everything I care about, and I care about yours. I speak restoration over the distance. I speak honesty over the silence. I speak healing over the wounds. I speak softening over the hardness. I speak my presence into every conversation that lies ahead, the hard ones and the tentative ones and the unexpected ones where something genuine breaks through. And I speak my commitment. I have not given up on your relationship. I am not finished with it. And I am asking you not to give up either. Not today. Do the next right thing. Reach for help. Have the honest conversation. Say the prayer you have been avoiding. And trust that the God who holds your relationship in his hands is working in it even now, even in the middle of the crisis, even when you cannot see or feel the working. He is there. I am here.